So thank you all for joining this conversation. This year's Westmoreland Service Corps participants, we're going to have a conversation for a little while about the work that you've done this year and your lives in general. This is the kind of video clip that we can show to church members so they'll know what you're doing, and you can show to your family so they can be proud of you. And so I guess the whole world, once we put this on the internet, can know the work that you're doing as part of the Westmoreland Service Corps. So I'm Tim Tutt. I'm one of the ministers at Westmoreland Congregational United Church of Christ. And my colleague, the Reverend Kaylee McAvoy, who's really our Service Corps point person on staff. She and I are going to ask you guys some questions about your work. So I thought we'd just start by having each of you introduce yourself, maybe tell us maybe your hometown or your college or some geographic place for you, and then also just your agency placement for this year. And Kimberly and Benja and Madeline didn't have the chance to do their in-person presentations to the church thanks to this pandemic and all these things. So how about if we start with the three of you, and then we'll follow up with Josh and Sarah. But Kimberly, why don't you introduce yourself to us?
Yeah, my name is Kimberly. I'm from Beverly, Massachusetts. I went to Villanova University, where I studied global interdisciplinary studies, Chinese language and culture, and global health. I currently work at Mobile Medical Care at our Rockville location, and I'm hoping to pursue a career in medicine.
Excellent, and we definitely want to hear about Mobile Med in a minute, given the current events. But Benja, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure, my name is Benja Riley. I recently graduated from Carleton College. I majored in religion and I minored in Spanish. And I'm placed as a caseworker associate at Samaritan Ministry of Greater Washington.
Excellent, thanks. And Madeline, hello there.
Hi. I'm Madeline St. John. I'm from Kailua, Hawaii. I went to Goucher College in Maryland and majored in English and Spanish. And I'm currently working at the Pan American Development Foundation.
Thanks. And Josh.
Hi, my name is Joshua Bush. I am from outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I went to school at the American University in Washington, D.C., and I majored in peace, global security, conflict resolution, and human rights. And my current placement organization with Westmoreland is Capital Area Immigrant Rights Foundation.
Thanks. And Sarah.
Hey, I'm Sarah Williamson. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, and I graduated from the University of Georgia. I majored in exercise and sports science. I'm currently working at Mobile Medical Care, and I also hope to pursue a degree in medicine.
Very good. And like I said with Kimberly, we do really want to hear about Mobile Med and all of the COVID related things from each of you in a minute. But sort of the big questions, I guess, Benja, we'll start with you for this one. Mm-hmm. What have you learned about yourself during this service year, and what have you learned about the world? Those are two really big questions, so take those in any direction you want.
Okay, sure. I guess one thing I really learned about myself, I guess more so about my limitations of who I am, is I've learned A, how resourceful I am, but also B, how unresourceful I am. And I guess connected to that is just the fact that how important it is to rely upon other people, and like going to other people and being ready to do so is sort of an important thing that I really learned. It's when it comes to sort of interacting with people, I mean, I'm quite familiar with that and I enjoy interacting with new people. But I think that there was some more maybe organizational or institutional things that I'd run up against that I was like, not quite sure how to do that. And that sort of came into where I realized how unresourceful I was in those moments. So I think that was another thing that I learned, and just in the importance of just working in a workplace as opposed to maybe working at college or doing schoolwork, for example. And I guess one thing that I learned about the world, I guess coming from college, a big thing is just we have all these theories that we sort of apply and learn about in school. So maybe realizing that those theories and things that I learned weren't so cleanly implemented in the real world. And maybe having to realize that things quite aren't as simple as they might turn out to be in theories and models and whatnot. So that was kind of very enlightening. Of course, I knew that, right? But actually doing it is a whole new different thing. So I think that that's been a very, very great experience for me. Then I was also listening to a talk a little while ago where they talked about the social fabrics of the different networks of sort of civil society that kind of come together. And they sort of talked about how certain populations fall through those social fabrics. And I think that's one thing that I've also learned just by working with the population that I help, just sort of seeing that in real time and trying my best to help them as much as I can. It's sort of been a very enlightening thing.
Yeah, good. Thanks. Madeline, how would you begin to answer those two questions? What have you learned about yourself and learned about the world?
Those are huge questions, and it's I don't think I'll really be able to completely tackle them, but just as a sample of, I think I've learned a lot of things about myself and the world this year. But working at the Pan American Development Foundation has been just a very interesting opportunity. I didn't really know much about international development or what that world looks like before starting working there. Pan American Development Foundation is an affiliate of the Organization of American States. And we work on projects throughout Latin America and the Caribbean. So I've learned a lot about Latin America and the Caribbean this year, a lot about project management, communication, just within an organization, intercultural communication. I had the opportunity to go to Haiti for a week because I've been working on programs in Haiti, and so that was just an incredible opportunity to meet people there, learn more about the culture, learn more about the projects that we have there, and also learn, in terms of learning things about myself, I think this year I've really learned that I can go with the flow more than I realized. I learned on a Friday afternoon that I was going to another country the following Monday. So I think that was a way in which I've surprised myself this year by just being able to just improvise, I guess. Go with the flow.
So the world has called for a whole lot of improvisation lately. So that's probably a pretty good thing to learn. Yeah. So Kimberly, what about you? What have you learned about yourself or about the world?
I guess one thing for me that I've learned is in being in academic settings, I feel like you're always encouraged to have opinions and voice them, look at things and see how they can be better, especially with my majors of looking at international relations, healthcare systems, stuff like that. I just feel like it's kind of how my brain works, is just always looking at things, trying to figure out how it can be better, being encouraged to vocalize that, and then starting in a job at a work environment where you're not really have the power to really say something or engage in that kind of reform in something, I think has been something that I guess I never realized I like to do. And so I think that's been something that I've learned about myself from working in the real world as an adult, is that it's definitely something that I constantly always see and want to kind of share my ideas about things. But at the same time, when you're the new guy coming in and you don't really have that foundation or repertoire to build off of to say anything really, sometimes you just kind of gotta go with it, and it is what it is, and you just do it. But yeah, I think that's something I kind of never realized was something I want to do more of, but it's just kind of hard when you're starting out in the workplace. I guess something I've learned about the world, Well, I guess another thing too, kind of relating back to work and obviously wanting to be in medicine, like healthcare is a huge passion of mine. It's something I'm really want to help improve, but I think it's interesting to see when you work with other people who are in the healthcare industry or sector that it's really interesting to see how much people actually do care about it and how much people just do it for other reasons. And so I think it's been really interesting this year just, talking to people in different healthcare settings or even to my roommates who work at different organizations and seeing how much people are like super passionate about things in their work and if how much they aren't, because I think one thing that I feel like you always are told is, you should go into a career that you're really passionate about, that like makes you excited and happy. And then especially as a social justice oriented service corps, I feel like it's been another really important thing to all of us, like social justice. So I think when you work in those kinds of organizations, but then, it's surprising sometimes that you can meet people who do things for it, but maybe just aren't as like gung-ho about it as you thought they might be. So yeah, I guess those are two things.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you all for giving that really big question a shot. And we also thank Josh and Sarah for being able to share some of their thoughts with our congregation earlier in the world we lived in before COVID-19.
Seems like a whole different world about 1 million years ago. Let's just be honest.
It seems like maybe a couple decades. But I think I would love to shift the conversation to how you all are faring in the midst of pandemic a little bit. I, as your community counselor, get to see your faces now via Zoom once a week, which is always relieving for me to see how you're doing. But I know that other folks in our congregation have kept you in their prayers and in their thoughts. So I think starting with Sarah and Kimberly, we would love to hear how this virus has been impacting your work and your placement, especially working at Mobile Med as medical caregivers in that way. And then after, I also would love to hear from Benja and Madeline and Josh about the transition of trying to do justice work from a computer. But first, Sarah, how about you tell us how work is going for you?
Yeah, I mean, definitely if you would have told me at the beginning of the year that we'd be working front lines, I'd be like, oh, you guys are crazy. Like, there's no way. But, people are always talking about frontline workers, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that's us now. But yeah, I would say definitely, I mean, when this all started, it was like very crazy. I mean, for everybody, but especially Mobile Med, especially the whole idea of having like a medical clinic and like going out to like these, underserved populations and serving patients. Yeah, it definitely was a big transition, I think, as a whole, just for Mobile Med. So I would say the beginning was a little rough, not having all the proper protective equipment. That was, a little bit of a transition, but I would definitely say now, we put so many policies in place and there's so much changing every day to make things better, and so many people from the community have been really helpful, providing us lunches and dropping off masks, and it's been really cool to see the community come together during this. I mean, Mobile Med as a whole, for sure. I mean, it was crazy in the beginning, but now I feel like we're very on the same page. Everyone's looking out for each other. It's really cool to see how all this is kind of shaped how we see patients, and kind of, introducing this new thing of telehealth. It's been really cool, especially for, a medical nonprofit that doesn't always have all the resources we need. Being able to still serve patients, I think, is a really big deal. The fact that we haven't had to shut down, I think, is really awesome. And I know me and Kimberly are very happy to help out during this time. It's been a very eye-opening experience for sure, but very rewarding as well, I would say. But yeah, I mean, it's been really good. It's been challenging. It's been hard, seeing some of these patients come in with symptoms and stuff, and people, the first person I remember that came in that had a cough, the whole clinic like freaked out. And now when someone comes in, it's like, all right, we have a policy. Let's give you a mask. Like we have all these, things set in place now that like it's just kind of like normal, I guess. It's like a new normal, which is weird. But I mean, I would say as like, frontline workers, like the stress is definitely a lot less, and like everybody just, we're all trying to help each other as much as we can. So like I said, it's cool to see mobile med kind of like change and work on the fly, and be so quick to, make changes and keep this clinic open. I think that's been really cool. So yeah, it's been an adjustment. It's been a learning experience for sure. I'm like sure I'll bring this to talk about, and hopefully med school interviews and future job interviews and stuff, to talk about what it was like to work front lines. But it's been an interesting experience to say the least.
Yeah.
Lots of masks. I have like a mask of every color now. I'm starting to build a wardrobe to match my scrubs. Like it's it's great. So
Yeah. Adaptability, man. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Kimberly?
Yeah, I think Sarah and I were talking about this the other day when we had our first staff meeting on coronavirus back in January, how lax mobile med was about it. We're like, it's fine. Like, it's happening in China, but we're going to be fine. Like, just know that this is going on. And now, like, fast forward 2 months, and then everyone would, like, completely freak out. And then in that frenzy, that was when, like, a lot of miscommunication was going on. But then once everyone kind of settled down from the panic, I think it's been very consistent in terms of like our updates that we get on policies, and then like our nurses have a meeting every single day for anything to be really discussed and talked about to get dispersed to the clinic. So I think it's definitely gotten a lot better. Another like fun thing that has come out of this is we now do med deliveries to people who ride public transit or can't get to clinic by having someone drive them or anything like that. So on Tuesdays, I now go out and deliver meds to patients at their homes. And then we also do INR testing at their house, which is for patients who are on anticoagulants, which are like blood thinners. So you have to like make sure that everything is okay. And so now we do like door-to-door med delivery INR testing, which is kind of fun. And definitely something that was different because, we didn't want patients taking public transit into clinic, but also just like they still need their medications. How are we going to go about this? So it's definitely been a lot of improv, like Sarah was saying, on new things to implement. So it's definitely kind of been fun, I guess, to see how things are changing. I know telehealth has now gone from just like our primary care to now even our volunteer specialists are now doing it. So we don't get like super behind on our patients who need that specialty care as well. So I think there have been a lot of good changes that have been going on. Yeah, I think Sarah covered the rest.
Can I just jump in real quickly to say it's interesting? So two of the things you're talking about, like telehealth, that's a new way to get your medical care. That seems new and different. And door-to-door delivery, that's like a really old way of getting health care. So it's so interesting that what this pandemic is doing is both pushing us forward to new ways and then pushing us back just to old ways of house calls, right? Which is a very human way of doing. So thanks for lifting up sort of the new and the old in that. Sorry to interrupt there. Thanks.
Yeah, no. I never even think about that. Yeah.
That's funny.
And Kimberly also gets extra props for driving this really big medical van.
It's smaller. It's not the big one that they come in on. But
yeah.
Yeah, also shout out to Dan for the car loan from the board, so I didn't have to take public transit anymore since it was down. So that's also been another impromptu thing from the board. So thank you for being super accommodating with everything going on as well.
Yeah, so just some background information along with our 5 volunteers here. We have a board of 8 to 12 congregants, volunteers in our congregation that work with our interns throughout the year. And when they found out that Kimberly was still taking the metro to get into work, one of the volunteers offered to loan his car to the interns for the time being so that Kimberly could get to work safely. So a huge shout out and thank you to Dan Brady and the Brady family and all of the board members that have been, I know, calling you guys and texting you and checking in when they can. So it's been, really cool for me to see the ways our community has moved to support each other through this time. So thanks so much, Kimberly and Sarah. We are sending you blessings for cool colored masks and rest in between your days of work also. So Josh and Benja and Madeline have also been working from home on an adventure that we are all on here. So I would love them to share about how their work has increased, decreased, stayed the same throughout this time and what that experience has been like. So Josh, how about we start with you, who is working at CARE Immigration Organization. And I'm going to unmute him.
Cool.
There you go.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Okay, so like I said in my introduction, I work at Capital Area Immigrant Rights Coalition. And about a month and some change ago, I actually moved home to Pennsylvania to do my work from home from where my home was before I moved up to, or I moved into the house in DC. So overall, in terms of how my work has changed in a work from home environment caused by COVID-19, the quantity of work that I have has increased quite a lot, actually, but the variety of work that I do has narrowed drastically. So the way that our organization operates is that most of our work is centered around bi-monthly visits to detention centers where ICE keeps people that are in detained immigration court proceedings. So obviously, with a pandemic going on, we do not go into facilities. We don't risk bringing the disease in or taking it out into the wider world. So the main focus of our work at CARE has been more or less cut off. We've been trying to do these visits by telephone, but it's difficult and not nearly as efficient or helpful overall as our visits in person were. So a lot of my work used to be focused around preparing for those and breaking down the information that we're bringing back from those visits. But now most of my work is focused around essentially trying to keep tabs on the people in our detention centers because they're being moved around a lot because of the circumstances. So usually I've hit the hours mandated by our contract by Thursday morning. But so a lot more work to do, but it's very samey, which can be fatiguing. But it feels good to be part of doing this and taking new steps forward as we try and find out what a very in-person contact-based organization like ours can do to continue helping its the people that are very vulnerable at this time, in a situation that's very new in our society today.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for keeping hitting those hours. And I know that your organization and you are doing everything you can. So thank you. Madeline, how about your organization? How are they doing and how are you doing at this time?
So a little bit different from Josh and Care Coalition. PADF, Pan American Development Foundation, already had a lot set up so that it wasn't too difficult for us to transition to teleworking, because it's a very international organization with offices like in Colombia, Haiti, different parts of Latin America. I already had Zoom calls that I was doing at work. A lot of my colleagues are in different parts of the world, so and a lot of the work that I do day to day is just on laptop. So I was able to take my work laptop home and just continue doing a lot of those Zoom calls. More Zoom calls than previously, because now I have to call the coworkers that I would have in-person meetings with. But other than that, it was a fairly smooth transition. And one thing that's been really neat to be a part of, working at PADF, because it is a disaster response organization. We've been putting together different materials related to COVID-19, awareness raising materials, posters that are going out in communities in Latin America and the Caribbean, and materials to help people with teleworking, like activities for kids to do at home that are kids who aren't in school. So it's been very neat to be a part of that, and to have the just my day-to-day be something that's extremely meaningful and feels like it's really making a difference. And yeah, to be able to have that sense of purpose has been really incredible. So I've been keeping very busy, but it's a good kind of busy.
A good kind of busy. That's all we could ask for, really, huh? That's awesome.
Yeah, very grateful for the opportunity to be this kind of busy.
Yeah. How have you been staying busy, Benja?
Well, working with Samaritan Ministry, it's a very direct services sort of driven organization where it sort of requires people to come in and, to have new people to meet, or people we've worked with before, right? But it's very face to face. So it's been kind of tough to make that transition. And in fact, we still have about 2-hour slot every week, once a week, for like as you call them, like emergency services. So for people who need to get mail, for example, in some cases we have like food. So we still do that, but other than that, our overall caseworking is kind of grinded to a halt, or it just sort of had to move remote through the phone. But I think the difficult part about that is that a lot of people, they might not have a phone, they might lose their phone. So that face-to-face interaction is a lot easier because it's a very, like, you're in a building, right? You're in the same place every time. And it's less reliant on the two people having communication at the same time. So it's been kind of difficult to get in contact with some people, and they're changing phone numbers or losing their phone or what have you. But we were trying to find new ways to kind of tap into the need, because there's a lot of need out there. People really, especially now, they need certain things like access to food. People still need housing, stuff like that. But at the same time, sort of heeding stay-at-home orders is kind of a very tough balance of the two. So we're trying our best to sort of balance those two worlds. And I'm doing a lot more reaching out to participants, as we call them, as opposed to them coming to us. So it's been kind of interesting, like, inversion of that relationship. But it's been positive, trying our best to get used to how things are, I guess, is how we're doing it.
Yep, trying our best. That's a really good theme that I have seen in this community, of you all, and in our Westmoreland community, and in some parts of the good old world here, just trying our best. So thanks so much for telling us that little update. And Tim and I have two kind of closing up questions for you all. And we've been talking about some kind of pretty heavy stuff here. So I think I'm also wondering, in kind of reflecting on this past year, some ideas about what kind of fun you all have had in the past year together, or with the board, or in your kind of work environment. So kind of my final closing question is, what is the most fun you've had in this year? And Benja, how about we keep the mic on you here? You can start us off.
Sure. Well, there's this one time where I went to, I guess it was a nightclub or a concert, but I was supposed to go with a friend, but they ended up bailing, and it was like a last minute thing. So I guess it was really fun to go on my own. It was kind of both anxious. I was kind of anxious and, kind of excited at the same time, but it ended up being a really good time. I mean, either way, I'm going to have fun. That's sort of my end goal. But it was just definitely a different sort of experience to go on my own to a nightclub, because from the outside it's kind of scary, but honestly it was a really good time just to go and sort of do my own thing and not really be tied down. So I really enjoyed that. It was definitely a different experience for me, but also just as fun.
Yeah. I'm just gonna go clockwise in my screen here. How about you next, Sarah?
Yeah. Let's see. I think my favorite part of this year was kind of early in the beginning. I got paired with Joan as my liaison, and instantly we connected over our love for baseball. And I'm from, being from Georgia, I'm a big Braves fan. But after coming up here and seeing, the Nationals, and telling her how much I loved baseball, she got us tickets to a baseball game. And honestly, we had so much fun that time. We stayed out super late. We ate junk food. Like, we just were like living life. It was so much fun. It was great. And I think it was maybe like 2 weeks before that, somebody from the board had heard that somebody liked baseball in the house. And like, I took the tickets to go to the Nationals game. And I took a guy that I was dating and didn't have any fun. And then I went with Joan and had like the best time. And it was just like, it was just great. So I would say that was definitely the most fun I've had. That was pretty early on. I'm definitely ready for baseball.
So do you want us to send this recording to your date, or are you gonna pay us?
No.
I can see that going either way.
Joan was the best date. We'll just say that.
That's awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
No surprise there.
Yeah, that was fun.
Oh, how about you, Josh? Oh, he's muted. We'll unmute you. You're gonna have to start from the beginning.
That's totally fine. There was one time that we all sat on the trampoline on one of our retreats for like 4 hours. That was fun. That was a good time. I like that.
Thanks. Yeah, that was our overnight retreat that we did. The house that we stayed in had a beautiful backyard and a big trampoline in the back. And, I think we were all surprised at how much fun that still was. Madeline, how about you?
Well, it's funny because Josh just stole my trampoline memory.
Yeah.
But that was a really good time. I think my other, another good fun memory that I have from this year was the other church retreat that just like the general Westmoreland church retreat that they opened up the invitation to us. And I just had a lot of fun hanging out with the other church members and getting to know them and doing arts and crafts and going on giant swings. It's a good time.
That was a good time, for sure. How about you, Kimberly?
So I was thinking of two things. One, I guess, is just the fact that I joined a field hockey club team when I got here, and I think that was like the most fun I've had doing team sports in a long, long time. I did field hockey in high school, but by my senior year, the end of the season, I just really didn't like my coach, and I just really started to not like the sport anymore. But then I don't know what got into me, but I was like, I'm gonna find a fun way to meet people in this area while also exercising. And so I joined this club team, and it's super fun, and they do like a lot of social stuff too. So went like to karaoke with people. We had like different tournaments in the area, and everyone was like super welcoming. So that was like a really fun thing that I decided to do for myself. And then the other thing I was thinking about in terms of with the group was we had like a housewarming party in September, and that was like definitely a super fun time. Pretty much everyone invited different people they knew, and then people from Mobile Med came through, got to dance it up with some coworkers. And then Benja, he has, this disco ball. So, the whole living room was just going pretty fun. And I don't think I like stayed up that late in a long time. I think we literally decided to go to bed at like 4 a.m. Like, I'm not even kidding. And the best part about it was we were in our own house, so I could just go up and crash in my bed instead of like having to call an Uber or something to go home. So I think the best part of that was, great, like I'm tired now. We can turn off the music. I'll just walk upstairs and like plop into bed. So yeah, it's definitely a fun time.
That's
Really cool just to turn your own house into a nightclub, right? It's always fun. Yeah. So one final question, sort of future oriented and service oriented, and I think Josh and Sarah have probably had a little chance to think about this when they talk to the congregation. So maybe for Kimberly and Benja and for Madeline. But Josh and Sarah, please chime in if you want to. Any advice or suggestions for maybe upcoming college graduates who are thinking about a service year, or really just anyone who's thinking maybe they're going to take time off from their job to join the Peace Corps or retire and do service? However, whichever population or possible people you guys want to talk to, just about thinking about doing a service year or something like the Westmoreland Service Corps. Any of the three of you, Benja or Madeline or Kimberly, want to jump in, or all five of you? Any thoughts on that?
So the first thing that comes to mind is just when making a decision, and then after you make the decision, talk to people and ask a lot of questions. Because I think that was what really sealed the deal for me for Westmoreland, was when I met all of the church members and you and Kaylee and Tim, and just had conversations, was able to have all my questions answered. And then during my service year, I had a million questions about a million things, and continue to have questions every day at work about life, etc. So it's just been really important to remember, like, nothing, it'll probably be worse if you don't ask your questions than if you do.
Pretty good advice for all of life, but for those thinking about something like this, so thanks. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Kimberly, were you about to unmute yourself? Did I see that? Do you have thoughts or advice?
Yeah. You did see that. So one thing I was thinking was, I guess what made me choose to do my service year was and I guess it's kind of been, something I've learned throughout this year is one of my professors from college was pretty much saying that, only in this like time of your life really is it easy for you to take a break from school or like getting into a job or other things, and really just devote yourself to doing something service oriented and self-reflective and learning about yourself, the world, etc. Because say in 5 years you decide to do it, it might be more difficult if you have a really steady job that you don't really want to leave, or maybe in 5 years you're married and have kids, or like, there's like many different things that could like play into the decision of doing that for yourself. And so she was like, right now is a pretty easy time for you to do and have an experience like this, because in 5 years, 10 years, you want to do it, it's probably going to be a much harder thing for you to pursue in your life than if you do it right now. And then I think that was kind of like another thing that led me, and I'm keep learning this year, is just that I think since I was little, I've just been very time oriented. Whether it be like, oh, by like 10, I should have braces, or like by like in high school, I should have done like this already. Like I've just been very much like, when I hit this age, like I should have accomplished this. And I think that one thing from like just starting even with doing this gap year was that life just kind of happens, and you can't just stress yourself out because I reached the age of 23, almost 24, and the things that I thought like my 12-year-old self was going to accomplish by then didn't happen. Doesn't mean that I'm off track on what I want to do with myself. And I think that that is something that I've kind of trying to remember, so when things don't always go in the straight path that I want them to, or maybe I end up doing something completely different than what I thought I was going to do, like it's all a learning experience. It's all going to be fine. And I think my professor was also like, you're in your early 20s, like it doesn't really matter. Like your 20s is just like so much learning. She's like, whether or not you decide to have go to school now, or you decide to go back to school in like 2 years or 3 years, she's like, those years are really not going to make a difference when you're like 60, 70, looking back on your life and being like, man, why didn't I start it when I was 22 and I waited until I was 25? Like, she's like, you're not really going to care about that as much anymore. So I think just trying to put everything into perspective and stop putting like those like time limits on myself and when I want to accomplish things is definitely, I think, something to remember, because I think especially as being like a recent college grad or seniors in college, you're like so much pressure on yourself to get that like first job out of college and like make X salary and do whatever. And so I think just having the knowledge that whatever job or whatever you do right after college probably isn't what you're going to be doing for the rest of your life. It's a learning experience. You're just trying to gain experience to figure out what you want to do. So yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, if our 23-year-old self could have conversations with our 13-year-old self, and our 33-year-old self could have conversations with our 23-year-old self, it's the perspective, right? So thanks for that. Yeah, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Benja, any words of wisdom or advice from you for future Service Corps folks?
Sure. I mean, I think I'll go off of sort of Kimberly's thoughts. I had sort of similar things, and just especially now, given this sort of COVID-19 and I mean, just post-graduation, right? It's just like there really isn't a normal at that point in your life, because you're just sort of finishing college. I mean, I sort of went through it and you're just like, what now? But I think that at least when I studied abroad, they sort of told us like, be comfortable being uncomfortable. So I think that's just a good lesson in general, just sort of like, it's like, it's okay not to know like where you're going to go, what you're going to do. And just sort of like, maybe almost like relishing in that sort of discomfort in a way, because I mean, as far as I've heard, like, when life does sort of stabilize, it's kind of just smooth sailing from there. So I don't know, maybe in a way, sort of you can sort of channel that, sort of like unsureness into like actually sort of maybe not positivity, but sort of like, sort of seeing something interesting in life. Maybe it's a good way. I mean, sort of it helps me a little bit in sort of just realizing that there is not a written path for every single person. You sort of have to find that on your own, and being comfortable in sort of exploring that, I think is sort of an important thing. And that whole discovery is like, it's okay if it's going to be difficult, or, the different sort of ups and downs of life, because I guess that's kind of how it is. But
relishing the discomfort, was that the phrase that you just used? Because you should trademark that. I think there are a lot of us that need to remember, because life can be so complicated. That's what we've learned, right? The past 5 or 6 weeks, that wow, who knew this was coming? And we still have the opportunity to live in the middle of that. So relish the discomfort. That's good advice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sarah or Josh, either one of you want to add any wisdom to future Service Corps participants? Any thoughts along those lines?
Madeline and Benja really covered what I was going to say. Madeline with just be willing to ask questions, ask all the questions that you have. If you choose not to ask a question, more than likely you're going to wish that you had somewhere down the line.
Mm-hmm.
And with what Ben just saying about just being able to be comfortable in your discomfort, just understand that any new environment is at the least stressful and probably hard most of the time. So it's good to just be able to find your own peace there.
Yeah. Sarah, thoughts, advice?
Yeah, no, I mean, you guys all were hitting it on the head. Yeah, I think for me specifically, like, I wish someone would have told me that other people were feeling the same stress of not knowing what to do after college, because I feel like everybody's always asking that question, and most people, I feel like, kind of just come up with an answer, but it would have been nice to know that, like, a lot of us were feeling the same way, being, current, college graduates. But yeah, I mean, I think just, jumping at the idea to, maybe move to a new place, do something different, get out of your comfort zone. Because like Kimberly said, 1 year, like, it's already flown by. Like, I can't believe it's already going to be May, and like, this year's almost over. It has made a huge impact, but it's not going to be, the end of the world if this wasn't what we wanted to do. Like, you just take it and you move on. Or if this is something that you want to do, if anything, like, for me, it's definitely helped me become more passionate about serving in underserved areas. So, either way, it's a win-win. You just have to have a good perspective. But yeah, I think everybody pretty much summed it up. Really good advice.
Yeah, thanks.
Really told me that. But now
yeah, Sarah, I think what you're saying, often we think that other people have everything all together.
Yeah.
I've had I'm a little older than you guys, and maybe I've known a few more people just because I've lived longer, and I don't know many people who have it all together, really. when you scratch the surface, most of us are just trying to figure it out, just trying to figure out how to live through the discomfort, how to maybe relish the discomfort. But I don't know that many of us have it all figured out. There's a great line from Ram Dass, the spiritual leader and thinker who's died in the past year, who reminded us that we're all just walking each other home, which is a great way of saying we don't really know where we're going, but at least at our best moments, we're all headed in the same direction. So we're all just walking each other home is a pretty good job description for life, I think. So I would say, to sort of wrap this conversation up, that you guys are awesome. Thank you for your flexibility and your grace during this very strange service year. You've been just great workers and great citizens of the world and great participants in this program. So thanks for that. Thanks for spending time talking with Kaylee and me this evening about your year. We'll figure out how to record this or how to produce this recording and send you a copy so you can see yourselves on this. And overall, thanks for being a part of the Service Corps. We really, really, really appreciate you and the 39 years of other participants in this program who have been a part of this place. So thanks so much.